Hello, I'm Gant Maurer, Oklahoma State University Department of Animal Science. We are going to visit about preconditioning nutrition and management that a cow-calf producer can use whenever he actually weans his calves. This particular slide set actually comes from our Master Cattleman program, and if you would like more information about the Master Cattleman program or a beef manual, you can contact your county extension agent and they can provide you with that information. So again, we're going to talk about some pre-weaning management, the actual weaning management of those calves when we pull those calves off the cow and get ready to market those animals, and then what we can do post-weaning to put some gain, which is the most valuable component of any preconditioning program, of really any stocker or grower program, is the value and how do we put those pounds on that calf. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So the term preconditioning actually originated at Oklahoma State University back in the 1960s at a conference that was actually held here on campus. And so what it is, it's management steps executed prior to, during, and after weaning to ensure optimum health and performance of calves. So we're just setting those calves up for success, whether we keep those calves ourselves or we market those calves on down the line. And if you're interested in the value-added programs, we're going to talk about those briefly. But the value-added section of this training, you can find more information and actually where some of those premiums are created for those value-added cattle. Really, the preconditioning steps are a good nutrition program, a good mineral supplementation, both for the dam and the calf. We're going to deworm that animal. We'll vaccinate that animal, of course. All the bulls will be castrated. Okay. Dehorning. A lot of our producers now will have polled animals, but if they're not, we'll actually dehorn those animals. Post weaning, we're going to find ways to minimize stress on that animal. We want them to be able to eat from a feed bunk so they get that good nutrition program that we're talking about. And again, the minimum weaning period is about 45 days for those animals. And if you do that, again, you can go to another training session called the OQBN or the Oklahoma Quality Beef Network. Okay, but if you wean those calves, you're able to enroll those calves into a VAC 45 program and market those calves as VAC 45. Also, a lot of livestock auctions may have their own VAC 45 program that you can utilize and put your calves in a special, either a special sale or a portion of a sale to market your calves as VAC 45. So let's talk a little bit about pre-weaning management, how we can get those calves ready to manage prior to pulling them off the calves. Of course, it's extremely important to get the passive transfer of immunoglobulins from colostrum. Okay, and it really, again, once that calf is born, he needs to really, we need to make sure that calf sucks the cow really within 12 hours of being alive, and most calves typically will do that. Okay, they'll be healthier, they'll perform better throughout their lifetime, and we won't have to treat them as much for respiratory disease. Mineral nutrition of cows and calves is particularly important. In Oklahoma, we're copper, selenium, and zinc we're going to be really worried about. If we're deficient in those, it could be an immunosuppressant, meaning that immune system may be suppressed. That calf won't be as healthy. He may have more opportunity to get sick. And our vaccines may not work as well if we're deficient in those minerals. Again, you can contact our office if you have specific questions about mineral supplementation, or our beef cattle manual has a whole chapter over that section in mineral supplementation of cows and calves. Again, deworming is one of the most cost-effective things that we can do in terms of increasing gain on those calves. A lot of calves do not require full immunity to parasites until about 20 to 24 months of age. Okay, so if they do have those internal parasites, they're going to have the reduced appetite. The immune function may not work as well, and vaccinations may not work as well. All of these VAC 45 programs have an option for vaccinating calves 2 to 6 weeks prior to weaning, and that is a good time. We can worm those calves at those times and take advantage of that wormer we're using for 2 to 6 weeks prior to weaning, plus on into the weaning period, that other 45 days before we go to market with those particular animals. And again, I want to stress to you the importance of the value of gain on any of these preconditioning programs, because that's how we really capitalize on a profit through preconditioning, is increasing gain on those animals. Okay. The other thing we need to think about is how can we reduce stress at weaning time? Are we going to be able to wean those calves in a familiar environment, maybe the same pasture that they've been in? Okay. Do we have small pens that we're able to provide everything that those calves need? Okay, meaning opportunity for that calf to have free choice hay, a good water supply in that small pen, and all this is doing is actually reducing pacing and trying to get in with their mother. Okay, and even if the mother's not around, if we have a small pen, they may not be willing to break out as much or get out of that pen if it's a little bit smaller. Okay, fence line weaning systems work really well. Whether you have you actually use fence line in a corral type setting or that small pen, or we may need to set up some sort of electric fence with our 5-wire fence to keep those calves separated from the mother. And again, they'll have contact with the mother. They just won't be able to suck. And really, this really does reduce stress and provides a system of comfort for that particular animal, as opposed to completely removing that calf and shipping him or her across the ranch or to a whole nother facility. The fence lining system really reduces the stress of that particular animal. So when we look at post-weaning management of calves, everybody does it a little bit different. There's not one strategy that works for everybody. Okay, some things we need to think about. This is when our feeding program really begins. We may have been supplementing them along, or we may have been supplementing those cows, and the calves have been coming up and stealing some cubes, or then they've been grazing with the dam a little bit. But this is when we really want to focus in on that feeding program. We want to think about, are these home-raised calves, or have these been exposed cattle? We're not going to talk so much about bringing in stalker calves and getting them ready to go through the 2-week sweat or anything along those lines. We're going to focus on home-raised. Oftentimes they haven't been exposed, they haven't been through a livestock market, a little lower stress system, and we usually have very good success with these types of programs. Typically what we would see, a death loss less than 1% on home-raised calves, and very nearing zero in a lot of situations. One thing we want to be cautious of, nutritional programs can be up to 50 to 70% of your preconditioning budget. Typically today, a very typical cost to precondition an animal for 45 days would be about $70 a head to be able to do that. Oftentimes, if we're able to, is get these calves or get those calves out of the pen onto some sort of native range or a pasture type setting. This is very helpful to get that calf out. If it's raining or extremely dusty, we get them out of those muddy conditions or those dusty conditions, and get them out on clean pasture, on good pasture. And also, we don't have to provide that free choice hay that they really need over this period of time. Again, if we're going to use a native range or maybe a mature Bermuda grass pasture, that we let grow up and save just for this particular reason. At that point in time, we may want to implement what's known as the Oklahoma Gold program, and that's simply feeding those calves about 1 pound a head per day of a 40% crude protein supplement, okay, 38% crude protein supplement. And really, during this period of time, if they've been in that small pen, hopefully we've gotten them broke to a bunk over a period of 3 to 5 days. Usually doesn't take very long. We've been watching for sickness in those particular animals, and then if we kick them out into that small pasture, that small Bermuda grass trap, it's very easy for us to continue to watch for sickness or any outbreak that may occur in that set of calves. We can also feed those calves this 1 pound of supplement within our corral or our set of pens. In case something gets sick, it's very easy to pull those calves back in and run them through a chute and doctor if need be. Okay, and ionophore in with our supplement is extremely important. Okay, in a program like this, we can improve our average daily gain about almost a half a pound improvement in average daily gain, which is extremely important in this particular situation. Okay, again, these calves don't have to be fed every day. I would suggest feeding every day, or maybe sometimes twice a day, just to keep an eye on those animals. Nutritionally, they could be fed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 3 days a week, but we really want to keep an eye on the health of those animals and pull them in and treat them if need be. Another option would be the Super Gold program, which is similar to the Oklahoma Gold program. If those calves are out on that native dormant range or a mature Bermuda grass supplement, if we can feed a 2.5 pounds a head per day of a 25% crude protein supplement. Again, a good vitamin and mineral supplementation, and an ionophore needs to be provided with that supplementation program, and we'll see a response of 3/4 of a pound a day, a really nice response in increasing average daily gain in those particular animals. Feed efficiency was about 3.3, which is really good and really efficient within that feed efficiency. All right, and again, this one we probably need to feed those calves every day or every other day. Again, I would suggest every day if labor allows, just to keep an eye on those animals through that stressful period. Again, if we're not going to use the Oklahoma Gold program, we can also use like a stockpiled fescue or a stockpiled Bermuda grass pasture. They perform pretty well over this time. You could also, again, this is in a pasture type setting, maybe close to a set of pens. Okay, similar to the Oklahoma Gold and Super Gold. The forage really needs to be that 12 to 16% crude protein, or it will remain 12 to 16% until about December. And we're going to want to feed 2 to 3 pounds of a 12 to 14% creep feed. Again, good minerals and vitamins within that creep. And within that 2 to 3 pounds, we'll see a nice response of about a half a pound of average daily gain improvement. Again, we're going to want to add an ionophore to that, or feed a supplement that has an ionophore in it. The other thing that we have available in Oklahoma is our small grains. Maybe we're on a fall calving system and we early wean those calves, or have some lush green pastures in the spring. Maybe we plant early some wheat pasture, and we'll wean our spring calves a little earlier or a little later in the fall, and be able to run those on some wheat pasture. The Oklahoma Green Gold is a really nice program of feeding 2 pounds a day of a crude protein supplement, and we can actually get a response on wheat pasture. We can increase our average daily gain of almost a half a pound. Feed efficiency was 4.7, which again is very efficient, very good. Again, you can feed that every day or every other day. This is a good way to deliver an ionophore All right, and also the recommendation of any of these feeding programs that we're talking about today, or how you're going to do it. We want to provide an implant in with those feeding programs, and an implant, $2 or $3 for an implant really will be a return on investment of $20 to $30 per head. A very cost effective to implant all these calves that particular time. We may also use a dry lot, strictly a dry lot, to wean those particular animals, and that's fine too. Maybe we don't have a pasture available that we can wean those calves in, or close to our corrals. We have to have a pretty decent high quality hay, a good Bermuda grass hay, a good prairie hay that's 10% or better, and we can find that around fairly easily. All right, and we're gonna feed that free choice hay again in some sort of a feeder, or maybe in a bunk, and make sure we have that hay available to those calves at all time. And then we're gonna feed a supplement at 1 to 1.5% of that calf's body weight. All right, and again, this could be a 10 to 14% to 16% type protein supplement, 1 to 1.5% of body weight, and we would expect a gain of 1 to 2 pounds. Not great gains, but it would actually work pretty well for us. Hopefully get closer to that 2 pounds a day. Again, we want an ionophore in that particular feed while those calves are in that dry lot setting. Okay. This would be the ideal setting. We would really push these calves pretty hard, quite frankly, if we had some really high quality hay, a high quality alfalfa hay, corn or grain, or corn distiller's grain, something along those lines is what we would provide those animals in a dry lot type program. Okay, we could blend at a 60% hay, 40% grain type ration, and expect 1.7 to 2 pounds of average daily gain. If we have free choice alfalfa and choose to use free choice alfalfa, we would feed that supplement, that grain, at about 1% of body weight. If you want a little bit quicker gain, a little bit better gain, you could increase that supplement to about 60% of body weight, and then feed hay about 40%, or again have the free choice hay, but increased your grain at about 60% of body weight. We need to be careful for some digestive upset. We don't want to push them too hard too quickly. We would begin to feed those calves at 2 or 3 pounds of grain a day, and then we would work our way up from there. So those are just some things we may want to think about in terms of digestive upset or acidosis. So really that was very quick over preconditioning nutritional programs. There's 1,000 different ways to do this. What is our objectives of the nutritional management program? Are we weaning those calves to be marketed in a VAC 45 or a VAC 60 type program? Or are we simply weaning those calves for health, and we may retain those calves on wheat pasture or some very efficient program to gain them to yearling status? Are we going to retain ownership of those calves? At times we do not want to over-condition those calves, and really the main reason is if we push them a little bit too much, we want them to gain well, we want them to gain efficiently, but we could get docked at our local livestock market if we sell them at weaning and they're a little too fleshy. All right? Feeds must be really palatable, easy for those calves to eat. And if we have a high quality pasture available to us, again, if it's stockpiled Bermuda grass or very or mature native range, that could work well. Wheat pasture or some early season type native ranges actually work really, really well. They're going to be the cheapest way, and it's a good way to get those calves out of a dry lot situation, let them out on some pasture, on some clean pasture, and maintain their health at that time. Well, that's all we have for this particular section of the training. Again, this was from our Master Cattleman material, and if you would like more information, go to your county extension office. Thank you.